Well, let's now get the thoughts of former MI5 agent Annie Machon joining us on the line there from Brussels. Hi, Annie. You've been watching this, I know, most carefully. Turkey says, doesn't it, that it's speaking about a violation of its airspace, and it's something that Russia denies. And it said this violation took place for a full 17 seconds. And when you look at the map, if you believe Turkey, it was some pinnacle of land. Now, there was no way that this jet was actually flying in towards Turkey. It would have been flying across it anyway. I mean, Russia says that didn't happen anyway. Was any of it an excuse to carry out what happened?
Absolutely not. And in fact, a former head of the RAF in the UK, Sir Michael Graydon, went on the record yesterday saying that this was a complete violation of all known sort of protocols for these sort of things. In fact, only in 2012, the Turkish General Command said that, of course, sometimes these very short violations can happen because the jets move so fast and the borders can be all over the place. So, of course, this can happen. This is not an excuse to shoot down an ally's jet. And in fact, Turkey as well has a record, I think, over the last few years of 114 incursions into Greek airspace. Yet they never get shot down. So it's just a fact of life. You know, you've got fast jets. They're going to move around very quickly, and to take an order to shoot down a jet like that very quickly as well would be highly suspect.
Obviously, President Putin took a very strong line on this, and he warned Turkey that something like this can't happen again. Nonetheless, the Turkish president said that they would act in exactly the same way if the same thing, story according to them, happened again. What does that say about the current state of Turkish and Russian relations? Where's it going to go if he's saying that?
Indeed, it can only get worse, I think. Now, one has to wonder why Turkey took this action, and there has been speculation that the decision to have a shoot-down policy was taken a few days ago by the Turkish Prime Minister. Now, they wouldn't take this risk of destabilising a highly inflammatory situation politically anyway, unless they had the backing of their NATO allies. So one has to wonder what sort of incentives, perhaps, Washington might have offered to Turkey to allow them to go ahead with this. Now, one possible theory would be that this would bring, if Turkey does this to a Russian plane, then it might be tempting Russia to retaliate in some way. Once that happens, then NATO, including the Americans, the UK and most of Europe, would then have the pretext to take heavier action against Russia. So it's almost like a sort of proxy action between NATO and Russia. Now, of course, we all assume that Russia will not do anything too drastic in the face of this unwarranted provocation.
I mean, when you stand back and look at this, you think, well, Russia is Turkey's second biggest trading partner, was up till now. Up until last year, they were the most tourists that went there were Russians. OK, it's been overtaken by Germans now, but it's got a heck of a lot to lose. There's a heck of a lot of trading. It buys so much Russian gas. There must be something, I guess, behind the scenes here, because especially taking in Erdogan's words from just 2012, saying this very same situation, if it happened, because a Turkish jet had been shot down before by a Syrian one, if it happened, it would never lead to a shooting down. So he's totally done a U-turn, and bearing everything I've just said in mind, there must be something more to it behind the scenes, yeah?
I would assume there is a lot more behind the scenes. One of the possibilities would be that the Russian intervention to take on not just ISIS, but all the other extremist groups, terrorist groups in Syria, is too effective. I mean, they are capturing great swathes of land. They're giving great support to the Assad regime. We know that America still particularly wants to topple the Assad regime, partly because that's in the strategic interests of its allies in the Middle East, the Saudi Arabia and Qatar, who want to impose a very radical Islamic state across that region. Once that were done, then Qatar can build a pipeline from its country through to Europe and try and take away some of the gas and energy trade that Russia currently has with Europe. So geopolitically, it's in America's interest, as well as the rest of NATO's, to try and halt and destabilise what Russia is very effectively doing against our global terrorist enemies, such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who are operating in Syria.
Potentially behind the scenes. It's so multi-layered, isn't it? OK, Annie Machon, former MI5 agent, thank you for your thoughts.